We've all heard about businesses out there, these things called PEOs. But what are they? What do they do and how can they help your business? We're going to learn about that today. Welcome to episode 49 of the Key Hire Small Business Podcast, where we cover the issues that help owners scale their small business. I'm Corey Harlock, creator of Key Hire Solutions, and I will be your host. Our guest today is Susana Martinez, and she's the president of PEO for the CEO, where they create long-term relationships to outsource your HR and benefits solutions. A couple of interesting things we've learned about Susana. She's been in the PEO world for over 2 decades, so she knows what she's talking about. But way more interesting is when she was young, she backpacked through South America. She got into salsa dancing. Salsa dancing led to meeting her now husband. So dancing's been a big part of her life. Matt, let's bring Susana on. Hey, how are you?
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. So you're sitting up in Atlanta.
I am. Yeah.
How's the weather?
It's a little chilly. It's rainy, but I'm from Denver and I was trying to get away from the snow. So I am always happy to be in Atlanta versus the Denver cold.
Well, we're sitting down here in Houston and it's pouring rain today.
Yeah, it's pouring rain here too.
Yeah. So you said you met your husband salsa dancing?
Mm-hmm.
How long ago?
7 years ago. And
Wow.
typically, I would go salsa dancing and all the ugly guys were the good dancers. So it was really hard for me to meet anybody because I was there to dance, and
Right.
it was hard to date anybody because the ones that were good dancers were so ugly.
And they're there to pick up. They're there to
Yeah.
score.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So when
Awesome.
my husband walked in, he was so good looking. I was like, wow.
And you
And
can
then
dance.
when he asked me to dance, I was like, this is the one. He really knows how to dance and he's good looking.
Super cool. Well, we are talking about PEOs today. I don't know. I get the feeling there's a lot of mystery around PEOs and what they do. And there's a lot of pro and PEO people. There's con PEO people, right? So, with the show, we always like to kind of start with defining the topic.
Sure.
So maybe you could walk us through what a PEO is, and then maybe what you do as a PEO broker.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, oftentimes people don't really realize what a PEO is unless you've been in a relationship with the PEO, and the marketplace has very small penetration of PEO clients. But what a PEO stands for is Professional Employer Organization. And what it does essentially is it pulls several thousands of co-employees into a large group to get buying power and economies of scale on health insurance, workers' comp insurance. It helps businesses grow and scale by helping them with their back-end HR infrastructure and payroll. And
Okay.
what I do as the broker, believe it or not, there's over 700 plus PEO companies. So it's very hard to determine what's going to be the best fit
Sure.
for you. And as the independent PEO broker, I am PEO agnostic. I totally just take a look at what's in the marketplace. What are your needs? What's going to be the best solution? I try to narrow it down to like the top 3 to 4 PEO companies that are going to be great for you to partner with. And sometimes PEO just isn't a fit for everybody. So I'm here to just really educate people on what a PEO is, how it can benefit you.
Sure.
And sometimes if it's not a fit and you're ready to leave the PEO market, I can certainly help in that as well.
So do they have to be kind of within the state, or are they able to cross state lines? And the reason I ask is each state has different laws and requirements and regulations. And I'm curious to know how effective that pooling of the talent to get these better rates are. Do they need to be in the same state, or how does that work?
No, not necessarily. So believe it or not, Texas and Florida are the 2 top headquarters of PEO companies. And I'm not sure, why there's so many PEO companies out there. But there are some very small local PEO companies that'll just focus on the state that they're in and don't really expand their exposure. Most of the PEO companies I'm working with are national. And what ends up happening is the company is where the company is headquartered, is where we would find whatever policy for the workers' comp or the health insurance. But then oftentimes employers have employees spread out through the United States. So
Right.
to me, it's really important that I'm partnering with companies, PEO companies that have a national presence in every single state, because compliance in one state to another can vary drastically. And employers don't know what they don't know. All of a sudden, they find an employee that's a really good talent in New York, New Jersey, California, which are heavy regulated states. And those are even Colorado. Those are states like you really want to have a true partner by your side to help you make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's when it
Okay.
comes to HR.
And so we talked about maybe the buying power in the benefit program. Would you then need to get a national coverage, go with a large provider, or does that give you flexibility within the different providers for health insurance as well?
Yeah, well, most of the PEOs that I partner with that do have the national presence, if they have the national presence, are going with a large carrier that's
Okay.
national. A lot of the PEO companies use Aetna, United, Cigna, and some will use Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield. But Aetna's the biggest carrier. So every PEO company will have different plans with the carrier. They actually own the plans, and they might have state-specific plans. So maybe the network might be a little bit more narrower or different plans based upon each state, but typically they're going to go with the same network. A lot of the PEO companies will give you a dual option with Aetna and Kaiser as a dual option. So your employees can pick between those two carriers, and then the PEOs will have their different plan designs per state, or they can just be national plans.
Okay. So the way you explained a PEO to me, my understanding is it gives you buying power in terms of things like benefit plans and other, but they also provide kind of a central hub to do some of your administrative work too. So they have an administrative office where you can get them to do, sign people up for those benefits or some of your administration work. Is that correct?
Yeah, so when you're a company that's not using a PEO company, oftentimes you have a broker and an insurance carrier, your health and dental, vision, all the ancillary benefits, and you have these different companies you're working with here. You might have a payroll company that you're partnered with
Right.
here. Then you have your workers' comp policy, with somebody else separate with a different insurance carrier. You have to go through that audit every year. Sometimes you have to pay deposits depending on that. And then they might have somebody internally do HR. They might just outsource the HR every so often. What a PEO does is it brings it all together, all these different providers in a single source solution when it comes to technology. So oftentimes the clients get access to a very sophisticated HRIS system, the human resource information system, that ties all the vendors into one single source solution. So they typically get the technology and then they get people. So they would actually get, most of the time, depending on the PEO company, will get partnered with a certified HR professional at your beck and call as things come up, and help you with proactive HR and reactive HR. Especially if you expand to a new state, they're going to say, hey, these are the things that you need to be aware of in this particular state.
Okay. And the big question I know people have out there, and I think I know the answer to this, but how do you pay these organizations? What's their service fee or their fee based on?
So their fee based on is administrative fee. Typically, it's a per employee per month charge, or per employee per payroll charge. Some will charge a percentage of payroll. It's kind of a little bit all over the place, and it really depends on the size of your business. So as your company grows and scales, they can reduce the administrative fees. Oftentimes what I see though is companies, if you're currently offering benefits and you're paying a good employer contribution, and maybe you're paying some high premiums in workers' comp, oftentimes there's savings on the health insurance and the workers' comp insurance where it offsets any of
Sure.
the administrative fees. Sometimes it could be, a savings. Sometimes it could be a net even, and sometimes it can be a small investment. It just really depends on the offset of savings that we're able to provide. Also, a lot of the people don't realize is there's a lot of soft dollar costs as well
Hmm.
that I take into an account. If you're the owner and you're trying to do HR, how much of time are you spending, and are you getting the right advice, or are you outsourcing to a law firm and you're having to pay them hourly? And
Right. Or
yeah,
how much time are you spending processing payroll?
exactly.
So it sounds like you really need to do, I guess, like anything, there can be a little sticker shock when you hear that price. But when you
Hmm.
actually break it down and say, well, I can reduce my burden per employee by X, and
Hmm.
I can save money here, save money there, process my payroll in an hour versus having to pay someone a full day to go through and verify and do everything. You got to weigh that out. And I think what
Yeah.
I heard you said is sometimes it'll clearly be a better deal.
Yes.
Sometimes you might break even, but if you break even and are investing less time, that feels like a win. Uh,
Exactly.
or sometimes it might be a little more, but you might make that assessment and say it's worth it because we're going to save some time and some headaches and some mistakes. Like you said, those kind of immeasurable uh, costs that maybe someone misses a zero on the payroll and someone gets paid too much, or someone doesn't get paid enough, or you're not calculating things correctly. No one's ever going to come to you if you've given them too many overtime hours, right? They're not going to come and,
Yeah.
by the way, you overpaid me. So you get more accuracy, I guess.
And you also, it's a protection because the PEO is going to be a real partner with you as a co-employee. So
Right.
they really want to make sure you're compliant with HR laws. So new business is a good example. They've grown and scaled quickly. They don't know what
Sure.
they don't know.
Yep.
Sometimes I've talked to a company, they're over 50 employees and didn't realize it was a national IRS law that they have to offer affordable benefits to their employees. And they are going to be subsequent to an audit, an IRS audit. And who wants an IRS audit or a Department of Labor audit? And if they come in and audit you for one thing and find that you're out of compliance, then they're going to start audit. It's going to open up the doors for
Right.
everybody to come in
Yep.
and give you an audit, and how much exposure and how much you're going to actually pay in fines and penalties.
Right. All right. Well, I think we've defined it well enough. Let's move into kind of the mistakes that you've seen employers make, and I guess there's a couple different categories by not engaging with a PEO, or not engaging correctly with a PEO, meaning not utilizing them to maximize the return you get from them.
Yeah. So if you've never been with the PEO and you've never done the whole due diligence process, it's always a good eye opener to do it. Even if you don't go down that path, at least you're very educated on what it is, because at some point you might need to turn that button on and go in that direction. In any event, it'll really help you figure out where you're spending your money and your soft dollar costs as well. If you're currently looking at going with the PEO company and you're just not quite sure of how to make your selection, it's really important that you take a look at lots of different things. Make sure that the PEO company is certified. Make sure that if you transition mid-year, that they're going to give you a credit for any FICA, federal Social Security and Medicare taxes, which is really important, especially if you have high wage earners. Your state, make sure that they're going to give you some type of credit for your state unemployment rates, because most of the time by March, April, many of your employees, you've paid into the state unemployment. So you want to make sure you're going to get a credit if you're going to change mid-year.
Okay.
January is a good time to transition, but not everybody can transition at that time because they have their renewals are different times of the year. And sometimes they'll position it to whenever their health insurance renewal is. Another thing to consider is the health insurance renewal. So right now I'm talking to a lot of companies that are renewing in June. And each PEO company has a different renewal for their benefit plans. So if you transition to a new PEO company in June, you want to make sure you know when they're the new PEO company renewal, because it might be October, November, January. And so we really want to, that's where I come in. I help my clients negotiate, lock in a rate, or hopefully not, lock it into the following year if we can. So those are, really important things to consider, because if you make a change come June and then November you get hit with 20% renewal, you need to make it, an account for that.
Yeah. And that wouldn't be ideal, I wouldn't imagine. And so those are things we want to look at when we're working with them. What other things would you recommend a business owner when they're going through that process that they consider, or questions to ask if they've not used the PEO before and they're exploring that route?
Well, those are the questions. Find out when the renewal on the medical plans. Find out if they give you credits for taxes.
Okay.
Those are really important. If you're currently with a PEO, and that's typically oftentimes who I'm talking to, clients that have already been with the PEO for a very long time. If you haven't done due diligence in 3 years, it's always a good time to do that. And so sometimes I'll get somebody reach out to me and say, I really don't want to go through this process because it's a lot of work. I'm willing to just let you do it. So that way my executive team knows that we went through the due diligence process.
Right.
And oftentimes what we find is there's significant savings on the administrative fees, because those fees can just creep up over time. And there's a lot of PEO companies where they're not very transparent in their billing. They basically bundle it in their invoices and they charge you, and it's all payroll, taxes, workers' comp, and then their fees are hidden in that invoice. So sometimes they don't even know what they're paying, especially if you've been with them, for several years.
We did a show a while back on insurance, and it was a similar thing about it's just you have that relationship and you've worked with them a long time. So you make the assumption that, well, they must be giving us a good deal. And it's a complete pain in the ass to shop this.
Absolutely.
And so, but if you, like you said, every 2 or 3 years, you just make it a point of going through the exercise, and you end up thinking, oh, well, I thought this person, was giving me the best deal, but maybe they're not. I mean, that's just money, and that goes back into the business, into the, the owner's genes, or back to your employees, or whatever you want to do. So it sounds like, sometimes in that instance, the juice is worth the squeeze. Even if it comes out, you're getting a good deal, you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really where I come in. I can help you do that heavy lifting and do the whole due diligence on your behalf, versus, you having to deal with all the different sales reps and getting documents here and documents there and getting proposals from all kinds of different companies. I take that all the different proposals and put it all into a spreadsheet that you'll be able to read very easily.
And you know what to ask for up front from these people, so then you can deal with the PEOs, and no one, we always talk about the biggest asset to a business owner's time.
Time, absolutely.
And so if you can ask them one time for all this information and then do all that work in the background, and they don't even know you're doing it, all they do is get a report that says, here's a recommendation, or you're in a really good spot, or whatever, that's invaluable.
Absolutely it is. So if they're dealing with a bunch of different sales rep, each company is going to ask for everything under the sun, and they get very burdened down. I've given you everything you've requested, and now you want something else from me? And I give them pushback because I know exactly what they need. And if they give me any pushback, like, hey, we need XYZ report, I'm like, no, you got this report and it's giving you this information.
Right.
So.
And I would imagine, even as if they make it that hard and they keep asking for more and more and more, and I'd be interested to know what their motivation is to ask for extra info from a business owner. But that's that point where if they've been doing it and it's been okay, and you keep lifting that barrier higher and higher, eventually they're going to say,
they're like, I'm done. I don't have
time for this, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's where you come in and you're like, here's exactly what I need. Now, forget about me for a couple of weeks here and just let me go do my thing, and I'll report back when I have the information.
Absolutely. And sometimes what I find is you might be dealing with the newer rep or something, and they just didn't see the report, and I just have to point it out. No, you have the information.
It drives me nuts.
Yes.
When you send you send a very thoughtful message with all the information and they come back. I'll give you an example. I sent a message to a candidate that said, "Hey, schedule a meeting with me. Here's a link."
They didn't read the whole email.
They sent me an email back saying, "Hey, I didn't schedule a meeting yet. Does the link still work?"
Oh, shit.
I don't know. Click the link and find out. Like all you had to do is like left click, right? And you would have answered that question.
Yourself.
But it drives me nuts that different people have varying opinions, but when you're looking for people who have initiative and problem solving, that could be a red flag.
Yeah. Maybe it's not a good hire after all.
It's just it's something. Then when you're talking to them, you're thinking about this. Okay, well, let's go down that road and see, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all you had to do is click a link, right? It's just like all you had to do is go through the information I sent you, but it's just kind of lazy, right? People don't value time, and that's where you and I are very aligned. It's like, no. I don't want you to spend a second that you don't need to be spending on any of this. Let me do all the hard work for you, and I'll just include you when you need to be included.
Absolutely. And sometimes that'll eliminate the PEO altogether, because I'm like, all the other PEOs have given me a proposal based on everything I've provided, and you're still asking for more information. I'm sorry, at this time, we're going to just have to decline to quote.
Yeah, cool. So if I'm working with a PEO, what mistakes could I be making? Or questions should I be asking, or are there things that they're capable of doing for my business that, maybe hidden away and they don't really publicize that I can ask them to do for me?
Well, the invoicing is big. If you don't know exactly what you're paying every single payroll and administrative fees, that's a big thing. And you need to give them pushback and get some detailed reports so that way you know clearly what you're paying. There's all kinds of other additional benefits, cloud products that a lot of the PEOs sell. So if it's something, if the relationship is going good and you want to add some additional services like recruiting, performance management tools, things like that, time and attendance, those are additional products that you can include, and it'll all be tied into your payroll system. Especially if you're going out looking for new candidates. And if you hire somebody, that information will integrate to your payroll system.
So I imagine those are kind of like a la carte.
Mm-hmm. Those are a la carte pricing.
Pick and poke, and then they price it as a so much per month, or it would be an additional cost per employee to utilize that resource or whatever it is.
Yes, and they're typically very reasonable because the PEO is getting bulk pricing on the software. So
sure, yeah, and then they're reselling it to as many people as they can, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Background checks is another example. So if you have a great relationship with your background provider that's doing the background checks for you, it's always good just to double check what the PEO can give you. They partner with third-party vendors. And if you're going to get the same background information that you need at a cheaper price, why not, use their service?
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
One other question that I thought of is, and I've heard this comment a few times, that if you use a PEO, they own your employees and the business does not. Is that true?
That is not true. And that's a big misconception that I really like to make clear up here.
Sure.
So in the past, there used to be companies which called employee leasing. And any type of employee leasing, they do own the employees. Under the PEO model, it's a co-employment relationship. So the PEO becomes the employer of payroll and making sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's when it comes to HR. However, they are your employees. You own the employees. You manage who you hire, who you fire, who you want to give raises to. At the end of the day, though, if there is a lawsuit, any type of discrimination lawsuit, any type of lawsuit against an employee to the employer, there's going to be two people named on the lawsuit, the employer and the PEO company. So that's why they're joined together, and it's a co-employment relationship. And the PEO actually has skin in the game, because if they're going to be named on a lawsuit, they want to make sure you're doing the right thing.
But they don't inhibit the employer's ability to hire promote, demote, fire, discipline, that control still remains within the business.
Absolutely. That
Okay.
it remains in the business.
Great.
And
Thanks for clearing that up. I
yeah,
know that is a common misconception
it's a
about.
it's a very big misconception.
Well,
Yes.
hopefully a few people will listen to this and they'll go, "Oh, okay, that was my concern," and we cleared that up for them.
Well, there are companies that do what you call employee leasing.
Yeah, which
And
sounds like a crazy concept.
well, it's they just don't want to deal with having employees at all. So they just want somebody else to do it. A lot of the staffing companies will
Staffing,
do
yeah, that's
employee
what I was gonna
leasing.
say. That's
Yeah.
staffing, right? Where you pay someone, you have
To
a
do
$15 an hour job, but you pay them 18, and the staffing company takes their fee off the top of that, and then they provide benefits and pay the employee out of their payroll system. It has their logo on the paycheck, right?
yeah.
So I work for ABC Staffing, but I'm placed at company XYZ.
Yeah, but then the leasing company is actually doing the payroll and doing the
Right.
benefits, and they own basically your
Yeah,
employees.
and
Yeah,
you just have that person on your site working,
exactly.
but they're doing the timekeeping and everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
everything.
And
Yeah.
sometimes people feel that's worth the premium as well.
Sometimes it's worth the premium. Absolutely.
Because if
Absolutely.
someone's not working out, you can just say, yeah, this individual's not cutting it for us. Send someone else tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And some people enjoy that. I mean, I know a lot of companies that do a mix of that. And then you can convert those people, right?
Mm-hmm.
After 3, 6, 9, 12 months, whatever the terms of your agreement are, you can pay a conversion fee and then bring that person into your business. But you've got a try before you buy scenario, essentially.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move into the advice section of this, Susanna. If I am a business owner out there and I'm thinking, man, this PEO stuff sounds like something worth pursuing, or I don't know if I'm getting the best out of my PEO. What are the, other than calling you, and we'll give you a chance to kind of tell everyone how to contact you in a second. But other than contacting you, what are the top 3 to 5 pieces of advice you would give a small business owner when it comes to either engaging with or assessing your current PEO?
If you haven't done due diligence in a couple of years, it's time to do it. And you really want to gather as much detailed reports. And I'm happy to provide you a list of reports to gather from your PEO company. You want to make sure you're getting transparent billing so you know exactly what you're paying for. And oftentimes the owners don't necessarily deal with the PEO companies direct. They're more high level. Sometimes it's somebody internally that's dealing with HR and payroll. So you really want to find out, are there some hiccups? Are there some problems? Are there some relationship problems? Are they just not providing the level of service that they promised? Is it time to not only be based upon cost, but based upon service as well?
Okay.
Those are really important.
Awesome. And what are the questions someone new to it should be, or the pieces of advice you give someone who's thinking about it? What are the first 1, 2, 3 steps they should take to start at least exploring the opportunity?
Well, if you are currently offering benefits and you're paying a high employer contribution, I would at least just look at the health insurance piece. First of all. Also, if you're expanding and you're going to be hiring in different states, you should definitely be talking to a PEO company because there's so many different state laws, and you have to, in certain states, you have to pay somebody. If you let them go, you have to pay them that day. I mean, there's certain Colorado, they're constantly just passing new laws. Like you have to offer 401k to all your employees. You have to provide an additional insurance for family medical leave. So a lot of different states have different nuances, and it's great to be able to partner with the PEO because then you don't have to worry about that. You have peace of mind. You can sleep at night and just focus on scaling your business and hiring wherever you find the talent.
So when you're talking, and that's a great point, but if I'm hiring someone, say I'm sitting here in Texas and I hire someone in Colorado, it's one person, they're going to work remote. they fall under Colorado state law.
Absolutely, they do.
And if I'm not brushed up on that, I could get myself in a bit of trouble.
Absolutely, you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Great points. Anything else to add to all that, Susanna?
Workers' comp is another big piece. So if you're paying a high premium in workers' comp, oftentimes there's companies that require upfront deposits, or you have to do an audit at the end of the year. The PEO, joining the workers' comp PEO, you eliminate a deposit, you eliminate any type of audits. It's going to be pay as you go. If you've had any major claims and your rate has gone up quite a bit, it's always a great opportunity to look at a PEO to see if you can get some savings there and be more competitive as you're bidding on jobs, so that way your employer burden isn't, sky high.
Sure. I know some of the companies I've worked with in the past, they're small, they offer benefits, and they've had a lot of some long-term employees that have got, terminally ill, unfortunately, right?
Yeah.
And so they've gone out and the benefits are there for that exact reason, but they've had 2 or 3 people over the course of 3 or 4 years who have really used, I don't want to say taken advantage of, because they're not. They're utilizing the benefits that are available, right? But those costs come rolling back on that premium, and the rates get cranked up. So would a PEO be able to help kind of neutralize that or drop it a bit even in that situation?
They possibly can, depending on if the claims are done. So a lot of the carriers look, is it one and done, or is it going to be chronic, and is it still ongoing? So sometimes, a PEO is not going to be a fit for everybody. There's going to be a lot of PEOs that if it's something ongoing, they might the rates will be non-competitive. So there'll have to be some other options that the employers would have to look at.
And that's the challenge when they get these hits on their rates. So they shop them and they get this information, and the quotes they get back they're already paying super high premiums. And then the quotes that come back are even higher. So I guess what I hear you say is, let everything kind of conclude until all those things, you're kind of back to normal, where everyone's in good shape and using the benefit plan. I don't even know what the right way to say it is, but they're just kind of through as normal,
not overutilizing it, and anything chronic or ongoing. That's a really good point.
Yeah, and then that's a good time to kind of look at this and say, okay, we had a bump in the road here for the last 2 or 3 years, but it's normalized. Now is this the right time to maybe have you shop this around for us?
Absolutely. That's really probably the best time. And there's lots of other things that you can look at as well. Besides just the PEO master help. But I feel kind of weird talking about people that are ill, right? These are your employees and they have families saying, well, they're overutilizing the benefit plan. Well, no, they're kind of utilizing it. The reason why it's there, right? It's like, it's there for those instances. And you're really not supposed to know any of the health details about your employees, but oftentimes when you're a small employer, you can't help but know who's out sick.
Yeah.
But what I find oftentimes is the employers really don't know who's overutilized, what happened, why the plan just blew up. And oftentimes it's some dependent on the plan.
Could be too, yeah.
And the employer has no idea what it is. And so oftentimes the best thing is to do individual health questionnaires to get the employees to complete a HIPAA confidential link to really find out what's going on, to get some details, because it could be something that was ongoing but now it's no longer, or now it's they're in cancer remission and everything is steady Eddie going forward. And
you bring up a good point, right? The small businesses, and I always say the way you start a small business is to hire your neighbor's cousin, and everyone pitches in and does everything, and up into a certain point, and I feel like it's that 40 to 60 employee mark. That's just the way you grow business. It's friends of friends, it's referrals, it's all that stuff. Until you hit that kind of that peak where, okay, now we're out over our skis and we're bigger than the experience in the building, right? So all that to say, oftentimes you know exactly what's going on because these are all friends of friends of friends, and they've been working together shoulder to shoulder, and that it's a business, but there's also a business family that exists inside there. And so they do talk a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we always advise the employers it's better not to ask your employees anything. It's better
Right.
just not to know anything, but
Yeah,
sometimes they can help it.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I like to think people don't do it other than caring and wanting everyone to be okay. I don't know that there's, you know, most of the employers out there are good and will kind of help you through that, right? They wouldn't do
Right.
anything malicious in the background. And that's a whole
Right.
other conversation. But
Yes.
so Susanna, I'm listening to this. I'm thinking, okay, this is something I think I definitely need to start exploring. And I like the way Susanna's been talking about this, and I think she could be a good resource for me. Someone wants to reach out. How can we get in touch with you?
You can go to my website at PEOfortheceo.com, or you can also message me on LinkedIn at Susanna Martinez, PEO for the CEO.
I love the name, by the way, PEO.
Thank you.
Catchy.
Thank you.
It's like it's going to be like a mind worm now. I'm not going to be able to forget it.
You'll always remember.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you so much for your time. I've enjoyed
Thank
the
you.
conversation. It's been valuable, and I look forward. We'll keep in touch.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks so much. There you go, Susanna Martinez, talking about PEOs, which I know has always been a bit of a blind spot for me. So I learned a lot in that conversation myself. I'd like to thank you for tuning in to the Key Hire Small Business Podcast. If you got value out of today's show and you want to keep up to date on our new episodes, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. Also, leave comments if you have topics out there you'd like us to talk about. Put it in there. We're here to help you. So if there's something on your mind, we would love to bring an expert on and talk about that. If you prefer to watch or listen to your podcast, you can find us on any of your major platforms, Spotify, YouTube, whatever you listen on. Just search up the Key Hire Small Business Podcast. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'm Corey Harlock. And until next time, stop growing, stop grinding, and start growing.